Unaware she is daughter of a secret trillionaire who died recently. Husband lets mistress humiliate his wife and their twins at a Christmas party until he sees the guest list. He didn't just fail to defend her. He stood there and watched. At a glowing Christmas party he'd bragged about for weeks, in front of clients, strangers, and a woman who was not his wife, Mark Carter let the mother of his children be treated like she was nothing. While the music played and the glasses shimmered, his mistress slid into the seat beside him, and his wife Evelyn was pushed to the back of the room, standing with their two 6-year-old twins pressed against her side. It wasn't one insult. It was layer after layer. The mistress laughed at Evelyn's simple dress. She told the staff to move the children because they were in the way. She raised a glass and joked that some people didn't belong everywhere they were invited. Mark heard it all. He didn't stop her. He didn't even look at Evelyn. To everyone in that room, Evelyn was just a quiet wife from nowhere important, wearing a plain gold necklace and holding her kids' hands a little too tightly. No one there knew that only days earlier she'd finally listened to a voicemail from an unknown number about a man she'd never met, who had died recently. A man whose shadow touched far more in that room than anyone guessed. People online would later argue about how rich he really was, whispering that, if you added everything he controlled, he'd been the world's first secret trillionaire. No public list had ever used that word, but his money had reached quietly into companies, foundations, and even this very party. What they didn't see was the paper Evelyn was holding, the printed guest list she had picked up without thinking. They didn't see her eyes freeze when she recognized a single name on it. They didn't see the moment her heartbreak stopped shaking and started calculating. This isn't just a story about a cruel Christmas party. It's about what happens when a man lets another woman humiliate the wife he thinks is powerless, without realizing the people really watching that night were not watching him at all. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's like standing in that room and pretending you didn't see what they did to Evelyn. When you click that button, you stand with every quiet soul who was mocked, humiliated, and still chose to rise. Please, subscribe now and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. No one noticed Evelyn Carter when she stood at the edge of a room, and that was exactly how she had learned to survive. At 32, Evelyn had perfected the art of being unseen. Not because she was weak, but because life had taught her that attention often came with a price. She moved quietly, spoke carefully, and lived with intention. She didn't wear expensive clothes. She didn't chase trends. She didn't complain. Everything about her suggested someone ordinary, almost forgettable. She wasn't poor. But she lived modestly by choice. That morning she sat on the living room floor, carefully stitching a loose button back onto a small winter coat. The coat belonged to her son, Noah, one of her 6-year-old twins. His sister, Lily, sat beside him, legs crossed, watching her mother with serious focus. Say it again, Evelyn said softly, tying off the thread. Thank you, Noah said. And again, she reminded him. Thank you. Twice, Lily added proudly. Evelyn smiled. Teaching manners wasn't about politeness to her. It was about gratitude, about humility, about remembering that nothing comfort, love, or safety was ever guaranteed. She had learned that lesson early. Evelyn was raised by her mother alone. No stories of fairy tale love, no framed wedding photos, just a small apartment, secondhand furniture, and a woman who worked long hours but never complained. Her mother never spoke badly about the man who wasn't there. She only ever said one thing about him. If your father loved you, her mother would say while folding laundry, he did it from far away. As a child, Evelyn didn't understand what that meant. As an adult, she understood it meant distance chosen, intentional, painful distance. Once a year, without fail, an envelope arrived in the mail. Thick, cream-colored, no return address. Her mother always took it quietly and put it away without opening it in front of Evelyn. There was never excitement, never fear, just silence. Evelyn learned not to ask. Sometimes, though, she caught small details. A bank receipt left under a newspaper, a charity brochure tucked beside the envelope. Her mother never explained, but she always paid the rent on time that month. Some things her mother believed were safer, unexplained. The clearest memory Evelyn had of her father wasn't a face. It was a moment. Her high school graduation. While everyone else took photos and hugged relatives, Evelyn noticed a man standing across the street, older, well-dressed, but not flashy. He didn't wave. He didn't come closer. He simply stood there, watching her with an expression she couldn't name. Regret, maybe. Pride. Loss. Her mother stiffened beside her when she saw him, her hand tightening slightly on Evelyn's shoulder. "Come on," her mother had said gently, steering her toward the group. "They're calling your name for photos." When Evelyn looked back, the man was gone. Years later, she would realize that was the closest he ever allowed himself to come. Back in the present, Evelyn slipped on her simple gold necklace before standing up. The chain was old and heavier than it looked. It didn't match her lifestyle at all. It had belonged to her mother, and before that, someone else. Evelyn never took it off, not even when money was tight. It was the one thing she owned that felt significant. She gathered her twins and helped them into their shoes. Through the open doorway, she could hear her husband, Mark Carter, speaking sharply on the phone. Mark was 35, confident, ambitious, and increasingly impatient with things that didn't serve him. He was good at appearing charming in public. At home, he was distant, dismissive. "Don't argue with me," Mark said into the phone, pacing. "I already said no. Sponsors want numbers, not excuses." Evelyn paused. She didn't interrupt. She never did. Mark hung up and glanced at her, eyes scanning her clothes, the mended coat, the quiet children. His jaw tightened slightly, not anger, but something colder, disapproval. "You didn't have to fix that," he said flatly. "We could have bought a new one. I told you my bonus cleared." Evelyn nodded. "It still works. And they like this one." Mark didn't respond. He grabbed his keys and work bag and headed for the door. "You'll make dinner?" he asked, already half turned away. "Yes," she said. He left without another word. The silence he left behind was heavier than noise. Evelyn knelt again to help Lily tie her shoe, pushing away the familiar ache in her chest. She had learned long ago not to demand warmth from people who didn't know how to give it. Later that evening, after the twins were asleep, Evelyn stood alone in the kitchen. The house was quiet, too quiet. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. She stared at the screen. Her heart skipped not from fear, but from something deeper. Memory. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind, clear as if she were standing beside her. "If anything ever happens," her mother had whispered once, during a rare moment of vulnerability, "answer calls from numbers you don't recognize. The right people won't use your name in public." Evelyn's thumb hovered over the screen. The call stopped. A missed call notification appeared. She hesitated only a second. Then, exhausted, she silenced the phone and placed it face down on the counter. Whatever it was, she told herself, it could wait until morning. She had learned to delay questions, learned to survive without answers, but as she turned off the kitchen light, she didn't notice the small voicemail icon blinking softly on the dark screen. And she didn't know that the next time that phone rang, everything she believed about her life, her marriage, her worth, her past, would begin to crack open. Some doors don't knock twice. They call and call until you finally pick up. The first time Mark Carter raised his voice at Evelyn, it wasn't in anger, it was in laughter. "You're different," he had said, leaning back in his chair, studying her like a rare find. "Most women want more. You don't." At the time, Evelyn had taken it as a compliment. Now, standing in the hallway with her twins clinging to her legs, she watched Mark adjust his jacket in the mirror, his movements sharp and impatient. The man in front of her was 35, confident and increasingly convinced the world owed him something. His reflection mattered more to him than the room behind him. "Did you see my cufflinks?" he asked without turning around. "They're in the top drawer, left side," Evelyn replied calmly. Mark found them exactly where she said they were. He always did. Evelyn remembered things so he didn't have to. Years earlier, when she met Mark, he had been charming in a focused, determined way. He worked in mid-level finance at a development firm, talked about building something big, about success, about never being small again. Evelyn admired his drive. She admired how certain he was of himself, how he made decisions quickly, without doubt. He admired something else in her quiet. "You don't argue," he had said on their third date, almost with relief. "You listen." Evelyn had smiled then. She thought listening was love. From the beginning, she supported him in ways no one ever saw. When Mark stayed late at work, she waited. When his mood shifted, she adjusted. When he said stress made him sharp, she believed him. When people warned her about his temper, she defended him. He doesn't mean it, she would say. He just wants to do well. She believed loyalty could soften anyone. When the twins were born, Evelyn stepped back from her own career without complaint. She had been offered a promotion, one that would have meant travel, recognition, independence. A regional coordinator role, she declined it quietly. Stability matters more right now, she told herself. Mark never asked what she gave up. He assumed she hadn't lost anything important. Over time, his admiration for her humility slowly turned into expectation. He controlled the household finances not with threats or raised hands, but with indifference. He set up the accounts in his name for simplicity. He decided what made sense, what was necessary, what was extra. Evelyn never fought him on it. She trusted him. Mark, on the other hand, didn't trust money unless it was under his control. He often mocked wealthy people during dinner, called them parasites, said they were born lucky and thought they were better than everyone else. Real work isn't inherited, he'd say, shaking his head. You earn respect. The rest is just numbers on a screen. Once, half joking, half serious, he looked at Evelyn and said, "If you had real money, I'd know. I see everything." She laughed then. The idea felt ridiculous. Her world had always been small and carefully managed. She didn't crave more. She didn't dream of power. She dreamed of peace, of raising her children gently, of keeping promises. She believed marriage was about endurance. That belief kept her quiet longer than it should have. On this particular morning, Mark moved past her toward the door, phone already in hand. The twins watched him with wide eyes. Noah stepped forward. "Dad, are you coming to my school thing today?" Mark paused, then checked his watch. "We'll see," he said quickly. "I've got meetings. Big ones." Evelyn placed a hand on Noah's shoulder. "It's okay," she said softly. Mark slipped on his shoes. As he reached for the door, he stopped and turned back toward her. His expression changed, not angry, but calculating. "Oh, one more thing," he said. Evelyn looked up. "I'm in charge of the firm's Christmas event this year," Mark continued. "Not just the usual office thing. We're hosting some clients and sponsors, important people Sienna brought in. I've been working on this for weeks," he went on, straightening his jacket. "Told everyone at the office it's going to be the event of the year." He said the name casually, as if it had come up 100 times. "You'll be there," he added. "Of course." Evelyn nodded. Mark's tone hardened just a fraction. "Enough to notice. It's important you don't embarrass me." The words landed heavier than they sounded. Not a request, a warning. Evelyn didn't ask what he meant. She didn't ask what he was worried about. She simply said, "I won't." Mark seemed satisfied. He opened the door and left, already distracted by his phone. Evelyn stood still long after he was gone. The twins looked up at her, sensing the shift in the air. She forced a smile for them. She always did. But as she gathered their coats and bags, a quiet thought settled in her chest, uncomfortable, unfamiliar. For the first time, she wondered who the party was really for, and why he sounded afraid. Sometimes, the people you trust the most are the ones already preparing for you to stand in the wrong place. The first thing Evelyn noticed was the sound of heels. Sharp, confident, familiar in a way that didn't belong inside her home. She was standing at the kitchen counter, helping Lily with a homework worksheet, when the front door opened. The lock turned, metal against metal. Noah looked up first, his pencil pausing midair. "Dad's here," he said. But it wasn't Mark's voice that reached them first. "Your place is always warmer than I expect," a woman said lightly, as if she had said it many times before. Evelyn frowned. She glanced at the phone on the counter and saw a message she hadn't heard arrive while she was reading with the twins. Bringing a colleague by. "Need to grab a file." She turned. The woman who stepped inside moved like she already knew where everything was. She was in her early 30s, polished and stylish, without trying too hard. Her hair fell perfectly over one shoulder. Her coat was expensive but worn casually, as if she didn't need to prove anything. Mark followed behind her, keys in hand, already checking his phone. He had clearly opened the door and let her go first. "Oh, Evelyn," he said, sounding more surprised to see his wife than the woman he'd brought. "This is Sienna Blake." Sienna smiled immediately. Wide, friendly, confident, too confident. "It's so nice to finally meet you," Sienna said, stepping forward and offering her hand. "Mark's mentioned you. Evelyn hesitated only a second before shaking it. Sienna's grip was firm, familiar. And these must be the twins, Sienna added, crouching slightly. Hi, sweeties. Evelyn stiffened. She hadn't invited her to use that word. Noah glanced back at his mother. Lily smiled politely, the way Evelyn had taught her. Nice to meet you, Evelyn said carefully. Sienna straightened and walked past her, heading toward the kitchen without asking. She opened the correct cabinet on the first try and pulled out a glass, then paused. Mark, do you still keep the good ice on the top shelf, or did you finally move it? She asked casually. Mark didn't look up. Top shelf. Same place, he said. Sienna reached for it with ease. Evelyn watched, her mind quietly cataloging details. Sienna knew where things were. She knew about the good ice, an inside joke Evelyn hadn't heard Mark make in years. She didn't ask permission. She didn't wait to be offered anything. She belonged here at least. She acted like she did. Mark finally looked up and smiled. You didn't have to come by today, he said. Sienna waved a hand. I was nearby anyway. And you forgot your folder at the office again. She handed him a slim leather case. Mark exhaled in relief. Right. The sponsor files. I don't know what I'd do without you. The words were casual. The way he said them wasn't. Evelyn felt something tighten in her chest, slow and cold. They moved around each other easily. Too easily. Sienna leaned against the counter while Mark spoke, finishing his thoughts without thinking. We'll need to move the presentation up, Mark said. By at least a week, Sienna added smoothly. The foundation board won't want to wait until after the holidays. Mark nodded. Exactly. Foundation board. Sponsors. Words Evelyn hadn't heard much about before Sienna appeared. Evelyn stood quietly, her hands folded. She told herself she was imagining it, that this was normal, that this was work. Sienna turned to her again, eyes bright with interest. So, she said pleasantly, how long have you two been married? The question was innocent, curious, almost friendly. Evelyn opened her mouth to answer. We should get going. Mark cut in quickly, glancing at his watch. Traffic's going to be bad, and Sienna has another meeting. Sienna raised an eyebrow but smiled. Right, of course. Evelyn noticed how Mark avoided her gaze. Sienna slipped on her coat, then paused near the door. She turned back toward Evelyn. Oh, she said lightly. I'll see you at the party. Evelyn blinked. The party? Mark stiffened. Sienna tilted her head, confused. The Christmas event. Mark said it was all set. Our sponsors and the foundation board love these things. Evelyn looked at her husband. He didn't look back. It's just a work thing, he said quickly. I probably forgot to mention, it's fine, Evelyn said, her voice calm. Too calm. Sienna's smile widened. Great. It'll be fun. These people love to see who's behind the scenes. She waved at the twins. Bye, sweeties. The door closed behind her. The house felt different immediately, quieter, heavier. Mark cleared his throat. She's helpful, he said. Very organized, knows people. Evelyn nodded. She seems comfortable. Mark frowned slightly. She's just confident. Evelyn didn't argue. She never did. That night, long after the twins were asleep, Evelyn lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Mark had gone to bed earlier, saying he was tired. His phone buzzed softly on the nightstand. He picked it up and stepped into the hallway. Evelyn didn't mean to listen. She just couldn't sleep. Mark's voice was low, urgent. She noticed. He said. A pause. No, not everything, he continued. She doesn't need to know everything. It's fine. Just be careful. Silence stretched. I'll handle it. He ended the call and stood still for a moment before returning to bed. Evelyn closed her eyes. For the first time, she didn't feel invisible. She felt excluded. And somewhere deep inside her, a quiet warning took shape. Some smiles don't arrive to introduce themselves. They arrive to replace you. The phone rang again at exactly 11:47 p.m. This time, Evelyn didn't silence it. She sat upright in bed, heart pounding so loudly it drowned out the soft hum of the house. Mark was asleep beside her, turned away, his back a wall she had learned not to knock on. The twins were down the hall, breathing evenly, unaware that the night was about to split their mother's life into a before and an after. The screen glowed. Unknown number. Evelyn stared at it, then noticed the tiny red badge she had ignored all day. One missed voicemail. Same number. She slipped out of bed, bare feet silent against the floor, and stepped into the hallway before pressing play. Miss Evelyn Carter, a calm male voice said, measured and professional. My name is Daniel Rowe. I'm an attorney calling regarding a confidential estate matter. I'm sorry to contact you at an inconvenient time, but I believe I represent someone connected to you. It's important we speak. Please return this call at your earliest convenience. That was it. No details, no drama, just controlled urgency. Evelyn's heart beat faster anyway. Estate. Connected to you. Her mother's warning echoed in her mind. If anything ever happens, answer calls from numbers you don't recognize. The right people won't say too much on a message. Before she could talk herself out of it, she pressed the number and called back. The line rang once, twice, then clicked. Daniel Rowe speaking. This is Evelyn, she said. Evelyn Carter, you called me earlier. His tone shifted immediately, the way professionals sounded when something important finally landed where it was supposed to. Miss Carter. Thank you for returning my call, he said. I'll keep this brief for now, and we can arrange a proper meeting later. Evelyn leaned against the hallway wall. Okay. I regret to inform you, Daniel began, that your biological father passed away 3 weeks ago. The words landed without sound, like snow falling into deep water. My biological father? She repeated. Yes, Daniel said carefully. Your mother consented to a confidential paternity test when you were in college. The sample was collected privately, processed through an independent lab, and the results were sealed at the client's request. Confirmation has been in place for years. It was legally restricted until his death. You were never informed, he added. That was a condition he insisted on. You were meant to live your life unaware, until it was safe for you to know. Her thoughts raced backward years of unanswered questions. Her mother's careful silence, the envelopes that arrived once a year and disappeared just as quietly. The man across the street at graduation. There is no ambiguity, Daniel continued. You are listed as his sole biological heir. Evelyn's chest tightened. Sole meant alone, no siblings, no one else. He lived a very private life, Daniel said. Publicly, he appeared as an investor in several large companies and foundations. Privately, his holdings were extensive. He paused, choosing his words. You'll see numbers in the news eventually. People will exaggerate. What matters legally is that his estate has been placed in an irrevocable trust, and you've been shielded from it until now for your safety. Evelyn swallowed. My mother knew? Yes, he said. She agreed to his conditions on one term, that you would never be abandoned. He provided financial support anonymously. She protected your day-to-day life. The envelopes, the stable rent, the way her mother never panicked, even when work was slow. It clicked into place with painful clarity. Why didn't he? She stopped. There were too many ends to that sentence. Daniel spoke gently. He believed exposure would put pressure on you, make people approach you for what you had, not who you were. He watched from a distance, Miss Carter. Not perfectly, but intentionally. Evelyn pressed a hand to her necklace, the familiar weight suddenly heavier. What happens now? She asked. The trust activates fully, Daniel said. We'll need to verify your identity in person, walk you through documents, answer questions. For the moment, your name is sealed. Nothing has been filed publicly that links you to him. You have time to decide how visible you want to be. Evelyn stared down the dark hallway toward the twins' room. Time. Privacy. Two things she suddenly understood were worth more than money. Daniel hesitated, then continued. There is one more thing, he said, and I apologize if this feels intrusive. Part of our work has been monitoring potential risk factors in your environment, people who might try to use you if they knew who you are. Ice slid down her spine. What do you mean? We're aware your husband's firm is co-hosting a holiday event with one of the foundations your father quietly funded, Daniel said. Several of us will be attending in our professional capacities. Our names are on the guest list as representatives of the trust and related entities. Evelyn's fingers tightened around the phone. You know about my husband's party? She said slowly. We know about the event, he corrected. We didn't choose it. It was set before your father passed. Your husband's company has been trying to move closer to certain donors. Miss Blake Sienna leveraged prior connections to secure invitations. She doesn't know the full extent of who she's dealing with. Sienna, sponsors, foundation board. The puzzle she hadn't understood earlier shifted into a different picture. If you attend, Daniel added, you may see my name Daniel Rowe and my colleague Laura Kim on the printed list. That's not a coincidence. We won't approach you publicly unless you invite it. For now, I just needed you to know your life is already intersecting with this estate, whether anyone in your home realizes it or not. Evelyn's breath shook once. She forced it steady. Okay, she said quietly. I need time. Of course, he replied. We'll send you a secure email with proposed times to meet, away from your husband and his colleagues. No decisions tonight, just information. Thank you, she whispered. Miss Carter, Daniel said softly before ending the call. You've been living as if you have nothing protecting you. That's no longer the case. Please don't share this with anyone you don't fully trust yet. Not until we've spoken again. She ended the call and stood in the dark hallway, the phone pressed to her chest as if it could anchor her to the floor. Her father was dead. Her life, everything she thought she understood, had been shaped by a decision made long before she had any say. And someone, somewhere, had already connected the dots she was only just beginning to see. She walked slowly into the kitchen and sat at the table. The gold necklace around her neck felt heavier than ever, no longer just a memory but a marker. Proof. She remembered her mother's voice again, clearer now. If anything ever happens, answer calls from numbers you don't recognize. It had happened. All of it had already happened. From the hallway, she heard Mark stir in his sleep. A reminder that the life she lived now, the marriage she had trusted, was standing directly in the path of something much larger. The party, the foundation, the woman who smiled too comfortably. Evelyn looked down at her phone again. The unknown number no longer felt like a threat. It felt like a door. She wasn't ready to step through it yet, but for the first time in her life, she understood something with perfect clarity. This wasn't arriving late. It was arriving exactly when it needed to. And whatever waited for her at that Christmas party wasn't coincidence. It was a room her father's shadow had already walked into. Some truths don't explode when they arrive. They sit quietly waiting for the right room to walk into. The moment Evelyn stepped inside, she knew she shouldn't have come. The room was loud with laughter and polished voices, filled with people who looked like they belonged everywhere they stood. Soft lights reflected off glass and decorations, but the warmth was artificial, carefully arranged. Evelyn felt it immediately, an invisible pressure, like she had entered a space that had already decided she didn't fit. She tightened her grip on her twin's hands. Noah stayed close to her side, quiet and alert. Lily clutched her small purse with both hands, eyes wide as she took in the room. Evelyn bent slightly, her voice low and steady. Stay with me, she said. No matter what. They nodded. Mark walked a few steps ahead of them, confident, smiling, already greeting guests. He didn't look back to see if they were following. He didn't need to. In his mind, they were background. Evelyn slowed her steps, observing everything. She noticed how conversations paused when she passed. How eyes flicked to her coat, simple, clean, clearly not chosen for display. She noticed the subtle shift in posture when people realized she was Mark's wife, not a client, not a donor. Near the main table, a stack of printed programs and guest lists sat neatly arranged for attendees. As they walked in, a staff member handed one to Mark, and by habit, one to Evelyn. She accepted it without thinking, folding it over her fingers. Then she saw Sienna. Sienna Blake sat beside Mark as if the seat had always been hers. Her dress was elegant, fitted perfectly, designed to draw attention without asking for it. She leaned close to Mark, laughing softly at something he said, her hand resting lightly on his arm. The chair next to them where a spouse usually sat was empty, a handbag hanging off the back as if claiming it for someone more important. Evelyn stopped. This time, there was no confusion, no benefit of doubt. Sienna looked up and noticed her. Their eyes met. Sienna smiled. It wasn't friendly. It was satisfied. Oh, Sienna said brightly, standing halfway. You made it, Evelyn nodded. We were invited. Sienna's smile widened just enough to sting. Of course. Her gaze slid slowly down Evelyn's simple coat and understated dress. You really committed to the no-frills look, huh? Sienna said lightly. Bold choice for tonight. Mark finally turned. His expression flickered surprise at seeing the twins in their good coats, then irritation, then control. There you are, he said, as if Evelyn had arrived late to something she already owed him. "You can stand over there for now." He gestured vaguely toward the edge of the room. Evelyn looked at the empty chair near him, then back at Mark. "I thought, it's reserved," Sienna cut in smoothly, "for sponsors and board members. Seating is delicate tonight." She sat back down, crossing her legs, her hand still on Mark's arm. Evelyn said nothing. She guided the twins toward the side of the room, her posture straight, her face unreadable. She felt dozens of eyes on her now, watching, measuring. A server approached with a tray. Sienna waved him over. "Actually, could you move the children away from here?" she said lightly. "They're kind of in the way of the service path." The words were polite on the surface, sharp underneath. The server hesitated and glanced at Evelyn. Mark didn't intervene. He didn't say, "They're fine." He didn't say, "They're my kids." He said nothing. Evelyn felt Lily's fingers tighten around hers. "It's okay," Evelyn said softly to the server. "We'll move." She led her children farther back, closer to a wall where the music sounded duller and the conversations faded into background noise. There were no chairs. They stood. Minutes passed, then more. Evelyn shifted her weight slightly, careful not to show discomfort. Lily's feet began to ache. Noah leaned into her leg. Evelyn scanned the room. She saw people notice. She saw them look away. A few frowned, uneasy. No one spoke. Sienna laughed loudly from across the room, then raised her glass, tapping it gently to draw attention. The room quieted. "I just want to say something," Sienna said, smiling warmly, as if she were doing everyone a favor. "Tonight is about celebration, about belonging, about knowing where you fit." Her eyes flicked briefly toward Evelyn and the twins by the wall. "Some people," Sienna continued, lifting her glass higher, "don't belong everywhere they're invited." A few guests laughed awkwardly. Others shifted uncomfortably. One woman looked down at the floor. Mark stood beside her. He didn't stop her. He didn't correct her. He didn't look at his children. Something inside Evelyn finally went still. Not broken, not angry, focused. The same staff member from the entrance passed by, placing another stack of printed programs on a small side table near where she stood. Evelyn reached for one without thinking, her fingers brushing the thick paper. A guest list. She lowered her eyes, skimming it absently until one name stopped her breath. Daniel Rowe. The letters blurred for a second, then sharpened. The voice from the late-night call now had a place in the room. Her heartbeat slowed. The room seemed to pull away, sound fading, faces blurring. That name wasn't a coincidence. It couldn't be. She read it again. Then once more, noticing the line beneath it, Laura Kim, the trust administration contact Daniel had mentioned in passing, and other names she recognized from the firms and foundations he'd referenced. Her grip tightened slightly on the paper. When she lifted her gaze, she saw him. Across the room, a man stood quietly, watching her, not Mark, not Sienna, but someone else, older, composed, in a well-cut suit that didn't shout wealth but whispered precision, Daniel Rowe. His expression wasn't judgmental. It was assessing, almost respectful. Evelyn's face didn't change. No anger, no fear, only calculation. She folded the guest list carefully and slipped it into her coat pocket. She looked down at her children and smiled gently. "Stay right here," she whispered. "I'll be back in just a minute. I'll be close enough for you to see me." They nodded, trusting her without question. As she stepped forward, the lights above seemed harsher, the air colder. Mark noticed her movement and frowned, sensing something shift but not understanding what. Sienna watched too, her smile faltering just a little. Evelyn walked calmly, no rush, no hesitation, toward the center of the room, toward the man whose name had been living quietly inside her voicemail. Because now, she knew something they didn't. This room wasn't built on Mark's power. It was built on her father's shadow. And whatever was about to happen next wouldn't be loud. It would be precise. Some moments don't ask for courage. They reveal it. She didn't get far. "Mom," Lily whispered, tugging her sleeve. "Don't go too far." Evelyn glanced back. The twins' faces were small and serious in the crowd. She couldn't leave them alone in a room where they'd already been treated like an inconvenience, so she returned to the wall. Her heart was still pounding, but the humiliation had sharpened into something else entirely. Focus. She unfolded the program and guest list again, smoothing the thick paper with steady fingers. Around her, The party continued, glasses clinking, soft music playing, laughter rising and falling in waves. To everyone else, this was a celebration. To Evelyn, it had become evidence. Names, titles, affiliations. She read slowly this time, not just looking for the one name she already knew. Daniel Rowe, Senior Estate Counsel. Laura Kim, Trust Administration. Her chest rose and fell carefully. The call in the dark hallway hadn't been a dream. These weren't random professionals at a corporate party. Below that, Jonathan Hale, Financial Compliance Auditor. Elena Locke, Chair, Locke Family Philanthropic Foundation. The foundation name matched the ones Daniel had mentioned. Quiet donors, long-term partners. Her father's circles. Evelyn's mind raced. These were not Mark's people. Mark's world was smaller, louder, hungrier. He chased investors, yes, but these names belonged to a different circle. A quieter one. A circle that didn't attend parties for networking or ego. They attended when something was being observed. She glanced up. Across the room, Daniel Rowe stood near a tall cocktail table, posture calm, eyes moving deliberately, not scanning the room randomly but locating someone. Her. Nearby, Laura Kim spoke softly with another guest, her attention focused, her expression neutral but alert. Jonathan Hale, the compliance auditor, stood in conversation with Marianne Locke, the foundation chair, both of them occasionally glancing at the main sponsor table where Mark and Sienna sat. None of them were watching Mark with admiration. They were watching the event, watching behavior, watching her. A chill slid down her spine, not fear, but recognition. This wasn't coincidence. She remembered Mark boasting weeks earlier about the guest list, about how Sienna had helped him reach higher. She knows people, he had said dismissively, the right kind. Evelyn understood now. Mark hadn't invited power. Power had followed her. She shifted slightly, her gaze moving to Sienna. Sienna stood confidently beside Mark, laughing too loudly, basking in attention she believed she had earned. Her confidence rested on a lie she didn't even know she was telling. Sienna had promised connections. Mark had believed her. Neither of them had realized who the connection really was. Evelyn exhaled slowly. This party wasn't Mark's showcase. It was her father's shadow arriving early. The thought settled heavily, but it didn't crush her. It steadied her. She remembered the envelopes, the silence, the distance, the protection disguised as absence. Her father hadn't stepped into her life, but he had never stopped watching it. And now, even in death, the safeguards he put in place were still working. Evelyn felt eyes on her again. This time, she didn't look away. Daniel Rowe turned fully toward her. Their gazes met, and for the first time that night, she gave a tiny nod, permission, not panic. He nodded back once, subtle, respectful. Her pulse quickened not with panic, but with resolve. At the main table, Mark finally picked up one of the printed programs he'd been ignoring all night and flipped to the guest list, half distracted. His eyes skimmed lazily until they caught on a cluster of names he recognized from office whispers. Daniel Rowe, Senior Estate Counsel. Laura Kim, Trust Administration. Locke Family Philanthropic Foundation. His stomach tightened. Those were the people his bosses bragged about in meetings, the kind who could reshape a firm's future with one decision. Mark noticed the shift. He followed her line of sight and frowned. His smile faltered as he watched the exchange, unease creeping into his expression. For the first time that night, he looked uncertain. "Who's that?" he muttered to Sienna, nodding toward Daniel. Sienna glanced over, her brow furrowing. "I don't know," she said quickly. "Probably someone important from the foundation." Mark's jaw tightened. Important to who? Evelyn folded the guest list again, carefully, as if the paper itself held weight. She placed it back into her coat pocket and straightened her shoulders. Her twins watched her, sensing the change. Lily reached for her hand. Evelyn squeezed it gently. "I'm okay," she whispered. "Stay right here where you can see me." A moment later, someone approached. It was Daniel Rowe. He moved quietly, deliberately, stopping just far enough to be respectful. His voice was low when he spoke. "Miss Carter," he said softly, "may I speak with you privately for a moment?" The words cut through the noise like a blade. Mark turned sharply. "Excuse me?" he said, stepping forward. "Is there something you need?" Daniel glanced at him briefly, just long enough to acknowledge his presence. Yes, Daniel replied evenly, but not from you. Mark stiffened. Daniel's eyes returned to Evelyn. There was no pity there, no surprise, only confirmation that she was exactly who he thought she was. It won't take long, he added, and it concerns matters we discussed on the phone. The room seemed to tilt. A few nearby guests, hearing the word phone, glanced over with quiet curiosity. Evelyn didn't look at Mark. She didn't look at Sienna. She looked at her children once more, then back at Daniel. Of course, she said calmly. If we can stand where my children can still see me. Of course, he echoed. Just over there. He gestured toward a quiet corner a few steps away, still within the twins' line of sight, but far enough from the main crowd to be out of earshot. Mark's confidence cracked not loudly, not dramatically, but enough to be noticed. His smile vanished. His posture tightened. Evelyn, he said, a warning edge creeping into his voice. We're in the middle of something. She turned to him then, her expression unreadable. So am I, she said. I'll be right back. Daniel waited, giving her space to decide. When she stepped toward him, she did it without hesitation. As Evelyn followed him, she felt something shift behind her whispers starting, eyes tracking, curiosity rising. Daniel didn't launch into explanations. In the quiet corner, he simply reintroduced himself, confirmed that everything he had told her on the phone was real, and asked if she was safe at home. He suggested a meeting away from the party, away from her husband to go over details. We'll contact you with a secure time and place, he said softly. This is not the room where you need to carry this alone. She nodded once. I understand. They parted after less than 2 minutes. No raised voices, no drama. Just a new trajectory. Evelyn walked back to her children with her shoulders a fraction straighter. She didn't know exactly what would come next, but she knew this much with absolute certainty. The night Mark planned to humiliate her had just become the night everything began to turn. Some names don't belong on a list by accident. They arrive when a story is ready to be corrected. The first document hit the table like a quiet explosion. Evelyn didn't flinch, but the room did. It had been a little over a week since the Christmas party. In that time, she had gone on making breakfasts, packing lunches, folding small clothes, and answering carefully timed calls from numbers that no longer scared her. Now she sat in a small, neutral office with no decorations meant to impress. Just clean lines, soft light, and a sense of order that calmed the storm building beneath her ribs. Across from her sat Daniel Rowe, the estate attorney who had spoken to her at the party, measured, precise, careful with every word. To his right was Marianne Holt, a divorce attorney in her early 40s, known more for airtight preparation than courtroom theatrics. Near the window stood Evan Brooks, a private investigator with a posture that suggested patience was his sharpest tool. Beside Evelyn, silent and steady, sat Rachel, a longtime friend from before marriage, before compromise. The one person Evelyn had quietly called and asked, "Can you come with me?" Evan slid the first folder forward. "This is where it starts," he said. Inside were bank statements, clear, undeniable. Evelyn leaned in, eyes scanning numbers with a calm she didn't feel. Transfers she didn't recognize. Withdrawals timed carefully. Small amounts at first, then larger. All taken from shared accounts, routed through a company name she had never heard spoken out loud. "Mark has been diverting marital funds," Evan continued. "Not recklessly, intentionally." Evelyn exhaled slowly. She had expected pain. What she hadn't expected was clarity, Daniel added. These movements began shortly after he met Sienna Blake. Her name doesn't appear on the accounts directly, but the timing lines up with when she started consulting for your husband's firm and when his spending pattern changed. Another folder followed. Payroll records. Shell consulting fees. Invoices with vague descriptions and neat formatting. Sienna was placed on payroll through a consulting firm Mark created, Evan explained. Minimal documentation of actual services. Just a clean way to move money out of shared finances and, in some cases, to mischaracterize money tied to donations from the foundation. Rachel closed her eyes for a moment. Evelyn didn't. She forced herself to look. "The foundation's compliance department flagged some of this before your father passed," Daniel said quietly. "They didn't know who you were yet. They knew only that someone at your husband's firm was too eager to leverage donor money and reputation." Weeks passed in careful increments. The investigation didn't rush because Evelyn didn't. She still took her children to school, still read bedtime stories, still lived quietly, Only now, every quiet moment was layered with purpose. More evidence surfaced. Text messages, preserved and verified. Mocking messages Mark sent to Sienna late at night. She doesn't know her place. She's nothing without me. I control everything. Some messages were worse, not in language, but in contempt. Talking about moving money where she'll never see it, about locking down the house if she ever got difficult. Evelyn read them once, then again, then placed the phone face down. I need the full picture, she said calmly. Marianne nodded. You'll have it, she replied, and we'll move only when you're ready, not before. Witness statements came next. Party guests who had noticed the humiliation, staff who had been instructed to move the children, a server who remembered Sienna's words clearly and that Mark had heard them and said nothing, a foundation representative who noted, in a formal report, that they were concerned by the host's disregard for his own family during a donor-facing event. Each statement signed, each account aligned. And then Daniel placed a single document in front of her. Trust documentation. At the top was a seal. Evelyn's breath caught not with shock, but recognition. The symbol engraved on the page matched the small, worn pendant resting against her collarbone. The simple gold necklace she had worn for years without knowing why it mattered. Her father's foundation seal. She touched the necklace instinctively. He wanted you identified without being exposed, Daniel said quietly. If anything happened to him before this all reached you, this symbol was his way of letting you know we were the right people. The room fell silent. Evelyn closed her eyes not to grieve, but to steady herself. Her life hadn't been small. It had been protected. More files followed. Draft documents Mark had prepared, post-nuptial agreements he'd never had the courage to present yet, designed to limit her rights if he ever did. Notes from meetings she was never told about, where he'd ask questions about shielding assets from a spouse who didn't understand money, a plan that depended entirely on her silence and trust. She felt something shift, not rage, not collapse. Resolve. Evan broke the silence gently. He doesn't know how much we've traced, he said. From the marriage accounts, from the business, and from the way he's tried to lean on foundation money. He thinks this is still under the radar. Evelyn met his eyes. He doesn't know we have enough to make people look at him the way they looked at me, she said quietly. The words hung in the air, not as a threat, but as fact. Marianne slid one last document across the table. A divorce petition, carefully prepared, thorough, unavoidable. We can file this when you're ready. We already have grounds, Marianne said. You don't need his permission to leave. Evelyn picked up the pen. Her hand didn't shake. She signed her name once, then again where it was needed. With each stroke, something old loosened its grip on her chest. When she finished, she placed the pen down neatly. I won't make a scene, she said, but I won't disappear. Daniel nodded. That's wise. We're also initiating the necessary reports with the foundation and the firm's compliance officers. What happens next to his accounts won't be because of your new status. It'll be because of his choices. Evelyn stood, her posture composed, her voice steady. Next, she said, we tell the truth. As they gathered the files, Rachel reached for her hand and squeezed it once. Outside, the world continued as if nothing had changed. But Evelyn knew better, because the quiet part was over. And soon, very soon, the people who had watched her stand in silence would hear her speak. Some endings aren't loud, they're signed and then revealed. The room went silent the moment Evelyn Carter stood. Not the uneasy quiet of a party losing its music, but the sharp, expectant silence of people realizing something irreversible was about to happen. The setting had changed completely from the Christmas gathering. This was a formal conference space arranged by the foundation's legal team and the firm's board, clean and bright, built for clarity, not comfort. Long tables, neutral walls. Rows of chairs filled with legal observers, internal compliance officers, select members of the foundation board, and a small cluster of financial journalists invited under strict ground rules. Everyone had been told they were there for a personal and financial clarification relating to donations and governance. Mark stood near the front, tense, jaw tight. He hadn't expected her. Not here. Not like this. He'd convinced himself this would be about misunderstandings he could talk his way out of. Sienna stood a few steps behind him, arms folded, posture still confident, but her eyes darted more than before. The earlier summons had mentioned questions about consulting arrangements. She'd told herself she could handle it. Evelyn took one steady breath. She looked different, not in clothes, not in makeup, but in presence. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't bracing. She stood straight, hands resting calmly on the table in front of her. No tears, no anger, only control. "My name is Evelyn Carter," she began, her voice clear and even. "Thank you for giving me a few minutes within this session." Mark shifted. "Evelyn, what is this?" he said sharply, trying to attach a strained smile to his words. "We can talk about this at home. This doesn't concern them." No one responded to him. Evelyn didn't look at him. "I'm making this statement to clarify several matters that have recently intersected," she continued. "Some personal, some legal, all factual. I'll be brief, and everything I reference is already documented with counsel." She nodded once to the side. Daniel Rowe, the estate attorney, remained seated among the other legal representatives. He did not speak. He didn't need to. His presence was enough. Evelyn reached into her folder and removed the first document. "I am the sole biological heir to a private estate," she said. "The trust associated with that estate was activated recently following the death of my father. His identity was legally protected during his lifetime. That protection remained in place until I chose to lift part of it for the sake of transparency in these proceedings." A ripple moved through the room, not shock recognition. Several faces, especially on the foundation side, showed quiet confirmation. Mark laughed once, short and strained. This is ridiculous," he said. "She's exaggerating. You don't have to." No one laughed with him. Evelyn placed the document flat on the table and slid it toward the central legal representative. "The trust documentation has been independently verified," she said calmly. "I did not seek this money. I did not know it existed. But I will not deny it, and I will not allow my lack of knowledge to be used against me." She paused, not for effect but for accuracy. "The relevance here is simple," she added. "I have no financial reason to fabricate what I'm about to say." She took out another set of papers. "Over the past several months," she continued, "marital funds were diverted from shared accounts without my consent. Some of those funds were moved through entities that also handled donated money connected to this foundation." Mark's face drained of color. "These funds were transferred through shell consulting fees," Evelyn said, her voice steady, "and placed on payroll under false or inflated services." She lifted a page. "The primary recipient was Sienna Blake." Every head turned. Sienna's smile froze. Evelyn placed screenshots on the table, clear, organized, labeled. Bank transfers tied to dates, internal memos, text messages. A short summary Evan had prepared of the pattern, with footnotes referencing the attached documents. One by one, she slid witness affidavits forward. A server from the Christmas event, an event staff member, a guest, a foundation representative. Each page moved across the table with a soft, unmistakable sound. No music, no shouting, just paper. Mark reached for one document, hands shaking. "This is out of context," he said hoarsely. "You don't understand how business works. This is normal." Evelyn finally looked at him. "There is no context where hiding money from your family and misusing relationships with donors is acceptable," she said quietly. She turned back to the room. "I have filed for divorce," she said. "The petition has been submitted and served. I am not here to argue about my marriage. I am here so that the organizations my father trusted and the firm my husband works for are not misled about what has been happening behind closed doors." Mark opened his mouth again, desperation rising. "Evelyn, you're making a mistake," he said, louder now. "You don't understand what this will do to me, to us, to my career." She met his eyes fully this time. "I understand exactly what it does," she said. "It ends the lie." The silence deepened. Evelyn closed her folder. "My purpose here isn't revenge," she said. "It's truth. I will cooperate fully with all legal processes moving forward. The rest is in your hands." She stepped back. The statement was over. For a long moment, no one moved. Then whispers began, not chaotic but precise. Phones lowered as notes were taken. Compliance officers exchanged glances. Board members leaned toward their counsel. Mark stood alone, exposed. Every attempt to speak fell flat. No one asked him questions. No one defended him. Sienna took one small step backward, then another. She looked around the room, not at Evelyn, not at Mark, but at the exits, at the faces that no longer reflected admiration, only calculation. Her expression changed not to guilt, not to regret, to strategy. Evelyn watched her quietly, because she knew this wasn't the end. It was the moment before the fallout. Some people don't fall when the truth arrives. They step away hoping no one notices how fast they're leaving. Mark Carter woke up to the sound of his phone buzzing like an alarm that would not stop. Not one call, many. He sat up fast, heart racing, thumb sliding across the screen as names flashed past. Accounts, numbers, alerts. Each notification carried the same quiet threat: access restricted, review required, pending investigation. He swung his legs out of bed, breath short, and refreshed his email. The messages multiplied instead of disappearing. Account activity flagged for review. Temporary hold pending internal audit. Donor-funded projects under formal examination. His assets weren't gone, but they were no longer his to move freely. Credit lines frozen. Business cards declined. Certain accounts temporarily unavailable pending clarification. Mark stood there in the half-light, trying to understand how it had happened so fast. He had always believed power gave you time, warnings, a chance to fix things quietly before anyone important noticed. He grabbed his phone and dialed Sienna, straight to voicemail. He tried again. Nothing. Across town, Sienna Blake was already gone. She sat in the back of a rideshare, sunglasses on despite the cloudy morning, scrolling through her phone with calm precision. Her finger hovered over shared photos, smiling dinners, staged moments, carefully angled selfies that proved proximity to someone she thought would matter longer. She deleted them all, one by one. She had already sent a formal statement through her attorney that morning. Brief, clean, careful. She denied knowledge of financial wrongdoing, claimed she had been misled about the nature of the consulting work, positioned herself as a contractor who trusted the wrong person. She did not mention Mark's name more than necessary. Sienna believed in survival, not loyalty. Before noon, she updated her professional profile, removed any reference to Mark's firm, and sent a message to a new contact, someone with resources, influence, and no connection to what was unfolding. A potential client who had only seen her polished side and knew nothing about Christmas parties or donor audits. She never looked back. Mark left message after message. Sienna, pick up. We need to talk. This isn't what it looks like. She never responded. By afternoon, the calls stopped going through. At his office, doors that once opened easily now stayed shut. Colleagues avoided eye contact. Meetings were canceled with vague explanations. Invitations quietly disappeared from his calendar. Former allies became busy, very busy. Compliance had questions, now formal ones. They weren't interested in excuses. They were interested in signatures, authorizations, and why consulting fees connected to donor-related accounts looked so much like personal withdrawals. Mark tried to explain himself, but explanations require listeners, and no one wanted to be seen listening to him anymore. Not while the Foundation's auditors were walking the same halls. He watched his reputation collapse in real time. People he had mocked as parasites now controlled the narrative. By evening, legal notices arrived. Requests for records, notices regarding joint assets, letters from Marion Holt's office confirming timelines and expectations. Nothing screaming, nothing dramatic, just structured consequences, one envelope at a time. Mark sat alone at his kitchen table, the same place where Evelyn once sorted school papers and gently reminded the twins to say thank you twice. The house felt empty. He picked up his phone again and stared at Evelyn's name. He called. Once, twice, straight to voicemail. He left a message he never thought he'd need to leave. Evelyn, please, just talk to me. We can fix this. I didn't think it would go this far. He waited. Nothing. Outside, his phone buzzed with another alert, another account restricted, another door closing. He finally understood what silence felt like from the other side. The next morning, he opened his email to find more messages, this time from people cutting ties politely. Wishing you the best. Given the circumstances, at this time we must distance ourselves. Distance. That word followed him everywhere now. Across town, Sienna was already having coffee with someone new, laughing softly, adjusting her posture to fit a different room. She had learned early how to read spaces, how to leave before the floor collapsed. She did not feel guilty. She felt relieved. Mark, on the other hand, felt something heavier than fear. Regret. He sat in the quiet house, staring at the wall, replaying every moment he had dismissed Evelyn's silence as weakness. Every time he had mistaken her restraint for lack of power. He remembered the way she stood at the party, calm, still, watching. He hadn't understood it then. Now he did. He hadn't lost her because she was weak. He had lost her because he underestimated her, and because, when people who actually had power walked into the room, they had looked at her instead of him. That truth settled in slowly, painfully, with no one left to argue against it. As night fell, Mark's phone finally went still. No more alerts, no more calls. Just quiet. And somewhere beyond that quiet, Evelyn was moving forward, untouched by the wreckage behind her. He sat there, alone, realizing the worst part wasn't losing opportunities or accounts. It was knowing he had never truly known the woman who walked away with all the power he failed to see. Some collapses don't make noise. They leave you alone long enough to hear your own mistakes. The final judgment was read in a room so quiet it felt unreal. Months had passed since the Christmas party. Months of filings, responses, negotiations. Months of sudden headlines and then quieter corrections. Months where Evelyn chose, again and again, not to answer questions she didn't owe anyone. Now, at last, she stood still as the words settled. The dissolution is granted, the judge said. Terms as agreed. Across the table, her divorce attorney, Marian Holt, precise and composed, closed a folder with a soft, final sound. There was no dramatic reaction. No visible relief, no tears, just an ending. Evelyn nodded once. That single movement carried years of restraint, endurance, and choice. She did not look back toward the side of the room where Mark sat with his own counsel. She did not ask questions she no longer needed answered. She simply accepted what she had already earned. Outside the building, the air felt different, lighter. The sky looked the same, but Evelyn felt as if something heavy had been set down and left behind. The twins waited on the steps with Rachel. Noah standing tall in his small coat, Lily clutching her mother's hand with quiet certainty as soon as she reached them. Is it over? Lily asked softly. Evelyn knelt to their level, her voice gentle and sure. Yes, she said. We're safe. That word mattered most. Safe. They walked away together, not rushed, not triumphant, but steady three figures moving forward without needing an audience. Weeks passed. The world tried to label her. Headlines hinted about the hidden heir and the quiet divorce behind the donation scandal. Whispers followed for a while. Evelyn did not chase them. She focused on what mattered. The twins returned to routines that felt normal again. School mornings were calm, evenings were quieter. Laughter returned in small, genuine bursts over spilled juice. Crooked drawings, small victories. Protection had replaced tension. Evelyn met briefly with Daniel Rowe in a simple office overlooking a garden. He outlined options, numbers, structures, responsibilities, but never pressured her. This estate supported several causes your father cared deeply about, Daniel said. Education, child welfare, quiet work in places that don't attract cameras. Evelyn listened carefully. I'll continue them, she said. But on my terms, no announcements, no photo walls. Daniel smiled, respectful. That's exactly what he hoped you'd say. She kept her last name. Not as a statement, not as defiance, as truth. The name she had used to raise her children, to sign school forms, to survive long before anyone knew what sat behind it. Evelyn did not transform overnight. She didn't buy extravagance or seek attention. She invested thoughtfully. She asked questions. She learned. She built boundaries that did not bend under expectation or flattery. Power didn't change her. It revealed her. One afternoon, Evelyn stood in a modest office space. She had quietly funded an organization focused on supporting families during transitions, offering legal guidance and emotional stability. Some of the lawyers there had once worked on her case. Others came from places that reminded her of her mother's long workdays. There was no plaque with her name on it, just a small sign by the door that read, "Free consultations, no one decides for you." She sat across from a young mother and listened. That was how she honored the legacy, by staying herself. At home, the twins drew pictures at the kitchen table. Noah sketched a house with 3 stick figures holding hands. Lily added a sun in the corner, large and bright. Evelyn watched them from the doorway, her gold necklace resting against her collarbone. It no longer felt heavy. It felt complete. That night, after the children were asleep, Evelyn stood by the window and allowed herself one quiet moment of reflection. She thought of her mother, her strength, her silence, her careful love. She thought of a man who had loved from a distance and protected without presence, who had built systems instead of memories. And she thought of the woman she had been quiet, overlooked, underestimated. She hadn't been invisible. She had been choosing dignity, choosing patience, choosing the right moment to step forward. The next morning, Evelyn walked her children to school, her posture relaxed, her steps unhurried. No one stared. No one whispered. Whatever the world had thought about her had already moved on to other stories, and so had she. As they reached the corner, Noah looked up at her. "Mom? Yes? Are we okay now?" Evelyn smiled, not softly, not sadly, but with certainty. "We always were," she said. "We just didn't know it yet." They continued down the sidewalk together, framed by ordinary light and everyday sounds. Not rich in spectacle, not loud in victory, but unstoppable in silence. She didn't win because she inherited power. She won because she never lost herself. I hope you enjoyed watching this story as much as I enjoyed creating it. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and comment on the lessons you learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below, and I'll see you. Unaware his wife secretly paid his mother's $1 million debt. Husband humiliated her after his mother gifted her divorce papers. What she did next ruined them. He didn't just stay quiet while his mother handed his wife divorce papers. He went further. He stood beside his mistress in his mother's living room and humiliated the very woman who had secretly saved his family from losing everything. That day, Claire Hayes held a decorated envelope in her shaking hands. Inside, divorce papers. Across from her, Helen, the 58-year-old mother-in-law, whose $1 million debt Claire had quietly paid off, smiled like she was handing over a birthday card. Adam, Claire's husband, didn't defend her. He joined the attack. In front of Helen, Brianna, and a few relatives. He raised his voice and called Claire manipulative, secretive, and controlling. "You're always hiding things," he shouted. "You think you're better than my family. You don't belong with us." Brianna stood next to him, one hand on his arm, pretending to calm him. "Just tell her the truth, Adam. Be strong," she whispered, while enjoying every second. Helen watched with satisfaction, like a puppet master whose strings were finally pulling the show together. They thought they knew the truth. Adam didn't know. Brianna didn't know. And Helen, who had begged for Claire's help, chose to bury the fact that Claire had signed a secret contract to pay her $1 million debt, using her own savings and financial skill to protect the very people tearing her apart. None of them knew she had kept records, transfers, messages, logs, and even recordings. They thought they were breaking her. They didn't realize they were handing her every reason she needed to ruin them. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's like letting Claire's pain disappear without justice. When you click that button, you stand with every loyal heart that was betrayed. Please subscribe now and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The kitchen erupted with the sharp crack of a ceramic plate hitting the counter. Claire's hands had slipped again. Her breath shook as she caught it right before it shattered. The sudden noise was loud enough to pull anyone's attention, but no one reacted. Not Adam, not his mother, not the house that relied on her. It was a moment that revealed everything. Claire was the only one holding everything together. And no one even noticed when she trembled. Claire Bennett, 32 years old, had been the quiet backbone of this family for 7 long years. To the outside world, she looked like the calm, organized wife who kept her life in perfect order. But underneath, she carried layers of responsibility that began long before she ever met Adam Hayes, her 34-year-old husband. Her story didn't start with luxury or ease. It began in a small, crowded home where bills piled faster than hope. Her father, Michael Bennett, a construction worker who aged too fast, had taught her something she never forgot. Claire, barely 14, sits at a worn kitchen table with a stack of overdue notices. Her father leans over her shoulder. "Learn these numbers, sweetheart. Understand them, because one day, the people you love might depend on you to save them from them." He wasn't wrong. Michael died only 4 years later, leaving nothing but debts and a small savings book that Claire guarded like a sacred object. She inherited responsibility, not money. But responsibility shaped her into a woman who could carry far more weight than anyone realized. That was the Claire who married Adam. A woman built from quiet resilience. In the present, Claire moved around the dining room, placing plates and refilling glasses, making sure everyone had what they needed before she even sat down. She managed all the household finances because Adam struggled with them. Not because he couldn't, but because he never cared enough to try. He was raised with the belief that someone, usually his mother, would fix the messes he made. Tonight, Adam barely looked up from his phone as Claire served dinner. His phone lay face down, but every few seconds it vibrated insistently. Claire's eyes caught the name lighting the screen, Brianna. She had heard the name before. Adam said Brianna was just an old friend from college. The explanation should have been harmless, but something about the tone he used had always felt too defensive, too prepared. As Claire set a plate before him, Adam quickly slid the phone under his napkin, not meeting her eyes. A small sting hit her chest, quick, sharp, and familiar. Across the table sat Helen Hayes, Adam's 58-year-old mother, a sharp-tongued woman whose presence filled every space with judgment. Helen had never approved of Claire fully, but she hid it under sweetened criticism. Tonight, she chose sweetness. "You know," Helen said with a soft smile, "Brianna was always so thoughtful with Adam, always knew how to take care of him. Some women just fit better." The words were coated in honey, but they carried poison. Claire felt the air tighten. There it was again, that subtle, constant comparison. Helen almost never complimented Claire. But Brianna? That woman could do no wrong. Claire forced a small smile. "I'm sure she was a good friend." Helen lifted a brow. "Oh, she still is." Claire stored the comment quietly. She always stored things quietly. Dinner pushed on with shallow conversation. The room felt familiar yet foreign, like Claire was present but fading. She watched Adam laugh at a message on his phone. He thought he hid it, but she saw everything. And then it happened. As Claire walked past the hallway toward the laundry room, she heard Helen's voice, sharp, lowered, urgent, the tone a person uses when speaking to someone they trust. Claire froze. The door was cracked open. Helen whispered into her phone, "Don't worry, he'll choose you eventually." Claire's heart stopped. Choose who? Her mind raced. Brianna. Was that who Helen was talking to? Or someone else? Why would Adam need to choose? Her throat tightened, but she kept herself silent. Listening became her shield. Helen continued softly. "She's slipping already. Just give it time." Claire's hand pressed against her chest. She had no idea whether the conversation was about her marriage, her place in the family, or something bigger. But she knew one thing. Something was moving beneath the surface. Planned, whispered, coordinated. And Claire had just heard the first crack in the truth. As she stepped away from the door, a single thought formed. If secrets were being kept from her, what else was hidden? She didn't yet know that tomorrow, a secret worth $1 million would come knocking. The knock on the door wasn't gentle. It was frantic, sharp, urgent. It cracked through the silence of early morning like a warning. Claire jerked awake, heart pounding, unsure if the noise was part of a dream or her reality. But when the knock came again, louder, desperate, she knew someone needed something from her. And whenever someone in Adam's family needed help, it somehow always fell on her shoulders. She opened the door to find Helen, her mother-in-law, standing there pale and shaking. The woman who normally carried herself like a queen now looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her hair was uncombed, her clothes wrinkled. Her hands gripping her purse so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Claire," Helen whispered, breathless, "please, I need to talk to you. Alone." Her tone wasn't demanding this time. It was terrified. Claire felt a chill sweep her spine. Helen stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, glancing anxiously down the street as if someone might be following her. She closed the door with trembling hands. "Are you okay?" Claire asked softly. "No," Helen whispered. "No, nothing is okay." She handed Claire a stack of papers. Claire recognized the logo immediately, a private lending firm known for aggressive collection. Her stomach tightened before she even read the numbers. $1 million. Due immediately. Final notice. Claire's breath disappeared. How long have you known about this? She asked. Helen sank onto the couch, covering her face. Months, maybe a year. I kept thinking the investment would turn around, that I would fix it before anyone found out. But they came to my door yesterday. They threatened to take my house. The words poured out in shaking waves. I made a deal with the wrong people. I thought I could handle it. I thought Adam would see me as strong, not stupid. Claire understood more than Helen realized. Her father sitting at the table, explaining to a young Claire that shame makes people hide the truth. Most debts, he said, destroy families because people try to pretend they don't exist. Claire's heart softened, even though fear twisted inside her. Why didn't you tell Adam? She asked gently. Helen looked up, eyes wild. He would have blamed me. He trusts me, Claire. I can't let him see me fail. There it was again. Adam's dependence, his blind loyalty to his mother, the very thing that created every crack in Claire's marriage. Then Helen leaned forward, grabbing Claire's hand with cold fingers. You're good with money, she whispered. You're responsible. You know how to fix things. I need you to help me. Please don't tell Adam. Claire stiffened. She had carried responsibilities her entire life, but $1 million responsibility. That wasn't a burden. It was an avalanche. Helen went on, desperation rising in her voice. If Adam finds out, he'll fall apart. You know how fragile he gets? You know he can't handle pressure. But you're strong enough to do something. Claire swallowed, remembering all the times Adam had panicked over simple bills, all the emotional labor she had carried to keep their life running smoothly. And she remembered something else, the way Helen whispered last night. Don't worry, he'll choose you eventually. If Helen was lying then, was she lying now? Or was this fear real? Claire opened her mouth to respond, but a car pulled into Helen's driveway, its headlights sweeping across the curtains. Helen tensed. Claire's curiosity prickled. She excused herself and stepped outside as Helen gathered her papers. Brianna stepped out of the car, beautiful, confident, too comfortable walking up to Helen's home at this hour. Morning, Brianna said with a bright smile, fake and sharp as glass. Claire forced a polite nod. You're up early, Brianna shrugged. Helen needed help with groceries, but she held no bags, no keys, just her purse and a smirk. Claire caught the look in Brianna's eyes. A look that said, I already know the things you don't. Helen appeared behind Claire quickly, voice a little too cheerful. Yes, Brianna's always helping me. Claire knew it was a lie. The early morning, the timing, the secrecy. This wasn't about groceries, it was something deeper, something planned. Claire drove Helen to the lending office later that day, her mind spinning. In the quiet waiting room, Helen leaned over. You're not going to tell Adam, right? Claire hesitated. Helen whispered sharply, if he finds out, he'll leave me. Those words locked Claire's decision. Her trauma, her father's warnings, her own loyalty. They pushed her into the seat she didn't choose. She signed the contract, took on the full debt, saved Helen from ruin. As Claire stood up, she turned toward the door. And that's when she saw Helen, standing far back, watching her, her expression calm, too calm, cold even, not relief, not gratitude, something else, something dangerous. As they walked out, Claire sensed it, a shift so subtle it felt like a shadow passing. She had just saved the family, but tomorrow the first crack in Adam's loyalty would begin to show. The shouting hit Claire before she even stepped inside the house. Adam's voice, sharp, angry, and nothing like the gentle man she married, echoed down the hallway as if he was fighting with ghosts. Just stop! Stop telling me what to think. Claire froze with her hand on the doorknob. Her first thought was that he was on the phone with someone from work. But when she pushed the door open, she found Adam in the living room, pacing back and forth with his phone to his ear, jaw tight, frustration boiling off him like steam. He didn't notice her. Look, I get it, he snapped. You're right. She does hide things. She does act like she's above us. Claire's stomach twisted. She stepped closer, saying softly, Adam, who are you talking to? Adam jumped, startled. He ended the call immediately, shoving the phone deep into his pocket. Were you listening? He asked sharply. His tone cut her. No, Claire said calmly. I just walked in. Adam scoffed. Sure, you're always just walking in, always in the middle of things that don't involve you. The cruelty was new, cold, sudden, but strangely familiar, because it sounded exactly like something Helen would say. Or Brianna. Claire took a deep breath. Adam, what's going on? You've been different lately. He turned away, arms crossed. You're imagining things. But it wasn't her imagination. It was the start of something she couldn't yet see, but could feel tightening around her like a rope pulled from both ends. As Adam walked to the kitchen, Claire followed slowly. Her mind replayed the decision she made yesterday, to save Helen, to carry that crushing $1 million debt in silence. She didn't expect gratitude, but she didn't expect this. Did your mother say something? She asked. Adam turned suddenly, eyes narrowed. Why do you always blame my mother? Why do you always act like you're better than her? Better than everyone? Claire blinked. I never said that. Yes, you do, he insisted. You just do it quietly, with your looks, with your tone. It hit her then. This wasn't Adam's language. This was borrowed speech, words he didn't own but repeated. She could almost hear the voices behind them. Helen. She thinks she's above our family. Brianna. She likes controlling everything. Helen. Adam, you need to open your eyes. They were feeding him poison in small doses, each word like a drip in a cracked glass. Claire exhaled slowly, trying not to cry. I've never tried to control you, Adam. Adam shrugged, turning his back. Then why do you hide things? Claire froze. There it was. Helen had twisted her secret into guilt, a secret Claire carried to protect all of them. She whispered, I didn't hide anything to hurt you. Adam didn't even look at her. You make everything complicated. Her heart stung. Another borrowed phrase. And then her phone buzzed. She reached for it, but Adam snatched it first. Who's texting you? Adam. Give it back. He held the phone above his head like a child. Why? What secret are you hiding now? Claire didn't want to fight. She'd spent years avoiding conflict, smoothing edges, keeping peace. But the erosion had begun, and she was standing on the edge of the cliff. Finally, Adam shoved the phone into her hands and stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door. Claire didn't move, didn't breathe. She stood in the middle of the living room, surrounded by the life she built, realizing for the first time that she was no longer inside this marriage. She was outside of it, watching it fall apart. She walked to the hallway mirror and stared at her reflection. Her eyes looked tired, older than her 32 years. The Claire in the mirror wasn't the girl her father trained to stay strong. She was someone losing pieces of herself to people who didn't even know her value. When the house fell quiet again, she checked Adam's abandoned phone on the counter. He must have forgotten it while storming off. The screen lit up. A new notification appeared from Brianna. You did great today. Some people don't deserve you. Below it, Claire saw the next part. A heart emoji. Before Claire could process the blow, another notification popped up. Helen liked Brianna's comment. Two women, linked, strategic, aligned. Her heart dropped as she realized the truth. They were working together. The erosion wasn't natural. It was engineered. Claire's hand trembled as she put down the phone. And for the first time, a cold, unfamiliar thought entered her mind. If this is what they think of her now, what are they planning next? Tomorrow, she would learn the answer, and it would come in the form of a decorated envelope she never expected to see. The doorbell didn't ring. It roared. The sound blasted through the house with such force that Claire dropped the laundry basket she was carrying, clothes spilling across the hallway floor. Her heart jumped, racing in her chest. Nobody visited this early. Nobody rang the bell like that unless something urgent or dangerous waited on the other side. She wiped her hands on her jeans, steadied her breath, and opened the door. Helen stood there. Perfect hair, perfect smile, perfect cruelty hidden behind makeup. But this time she wasn't alone. Brianna was right beside her, arms crossed, eyes sparkling with something that didn't match the polite smile on her face. She looked ready for a show. Claire's stomach clenched. Good morning. Claire, Helen said sweetly, her voice full of sugar. "We have something for you." Claire didn't miss the word "we." Before Claire could respond, Helen stepped inside, Brianna following like a shadow. Adam appeared behind Claire, rubbing his eyes as if he had just woken from the best sleep of his life. His expression froze when he saw his mother, and then Brianna. "Helen? Brianna? What's going on?" Claire asked. Her voice was calm, careful, but inside something twisted, preparing for pain. Helen didn't answer. Instead, she held out a decorated envelope, pink floral patterns, gold trim, like it was an invitation to a party. But Claire already felt the poison inside it. "Open it," Helen said. Her tone was so soft, so gentle, it made the moment feel even colder. Claire's fingers shook as she slid them under the seal. The paper inside was thick, heavy, official. She unfolded it slowly, her eyes scanning the first line. "Notice of petition for dissolution of marriage." The world went silent. Her vision blurred for a second, as if her brain refused to understand what her eyes were reading. She looked up. Helen was smiling. Not kindly, not lovingly, not motherly, but triumphantly. Right behind her, Brianna watched the moment like a spectator at a boxing match. Her eyebrows lifted in fake shock. "Oh my gosh," Brianna whispered, a hand covering her mouth. We had no idea she'd take it this badly." Claire's throat tightened. She looked at Adam, her husband, the man she stood beside for 7 years. He wouldn't meet her eyes. "Adam," she whispered, "what is this?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "Mom thought, we talked about it. Maybe it's time to accept we're not good together." Brianna stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on Adam's arm, as if claiming him. "You're doing the right thing," she said softly, loud enough for Claire to hear. Claire felt something inside her body break so quietly it almost made no sound. Helen clasped her hands together. "This is for the best, Claire. You've always been different from us. Dividing the family, keeping secrets." The words struck deep. Claire's head lowered. Her hair fell slightly forward, hiding her face. For a moment she didn't speak, didn't move. She only breathed, slow, steady, deliberate. "Claire?" Adam asked weakly, unsure. She lifted her head. Tears didn't fall. She didn't scream. She didn't break. But her voice did tremble. "You're giving me divorce papers?" Claire asked quietly. "After everything I've done for this family?" Helen scoffed. "And what exactly have you done?" The question sliced through the air. These people, this family, really didn't know. Didn't know the nights she stayed up fixing Adam's financial mistakes. Didn't know the countless lies she swallowed to keep peace. Didn't know the $1 million contract she signed to save Helen from losing everything. They didn't know, because she protected them. Claire stepped closer, her eyes locked on Helen's. "You have no idea what I've done for this family." For the first time that morning, Helen's expression cracked. Just a flicker, a tiny tightening around the eyes. Fear. Real fear, because she knew Claire wasn't lying. Suddenly, Helen's voice wasn't so confident. "Claire, what are you suggesting?" But Claire didn't answer. She simply folded the papers back into the envelope and held them carefully, almost gently. Inside, her heart was burning. Outside, she looked perfectly still. Behind Helen, Brianna's smirk faltered. Just a little, because even she could feel it. The energy in the room shifting. Something dangerous had awakened in Claire. Something quiet, something controlled, something they never expected. Claire turned toward Adam slowly, and the look she gave him made him step back without even realizing it. She whispered, almost too softly to hear, "You have no idea what this will cost you." The argument didn't begin with raised voices. It began with Adam yanking Claire's arm the moment she entered Helen's living room. "Don't walk away from me," he shouted. The sudden grip, the sudden heat in his voice, felt like a slap. Helen and Brianna stood nearby, pretending to intervene but doing absolutely nothing. It felt like everyone had been waiting for Claire to break so they could call it her fault. Claire pulled her arm free, steady but shaking inside. "Let go of me, Adam." But Adam was already on fire, a fire fueled by whispers that weren't his own. You want to make me look like the bad guy? He barked. Then let's talk in front of everyone. He motioned at Helen and Brianna. Both stepped forward like they had front row seats. Brianna placed a soft hand on his arm, the touch intimate and practiced. Her voice was honey-coated poison. Just tell her the truth, Adam, she whispered. Be strong. Claire's eyes narrowed. Brianna's influence was no longer hiding in shadows. She was standing in daylight, proud of her role. Helen folded her arms, chin raised like a judge prepared to deliver a sentence. Claire inhaled slowly. What truth, Adam? Adam didn't hesitate. He stepped closer, towering over her, like he was finally brave, with his mother and mistress beside him. You manipulate me, he snapped. You hide things from me. You twist everything to make yourself look perfect. Claire blinked. The words weren't his. They were Helen's and Brianna's. She recognized the tone, the rhythm, the attacks. You're always secretive, Adam continued. Why do you think I don't trust you? You make everything complicated. You think you're better than my family. Every sentence stabbed her, not because they were true, but because he believed them. Claire steadied her voice. Adam, when have I ever acted like I was better than anyone? He laughed, cruel, loud, forced. You don't have to say it. You show it, every day. Helen smiled slightly, pleased. Brianna leaned into him a little, offering emotional support that wasn't hers to give. Claire watched the scene unfold, her heart cracking, but her mind growing sharper. The betrayal wasn't new, but the performance, that was new. She stepped back, needing air. So this is what you think of me? Adam pointed a finger at her like she was a criminal. I think you're hiding something, and I'm tired of being lied to. Claire's breath caught. He had no idea about the $1 million she took on for his mother. No idea about the nights she cried alone, worrying about the debt. No idea she was saving them while they destroyed her. She noticed movement on the coffee table. Adam's phone lighting up. Her gaze snapped to it. A new message. Brianna, I'm proud of you. You're finally standing up to her. Her stomach twisted. Not only were they involved emotionally, they were communicating in real time while she stood right there being humiliated by her own husband. Helen stepped forward, voice dripping with satisfaction. See, Claire? This is why we can't trust you. Even now you're making everything dramatic. Claire didn't respond. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. Instead, she looked at Adam one last time. The man she once believed she could build a life with. He wouldn't meet her eyes. Brianna smiled at Claire like she had won. Claire felt something inside her shut down. Not pain, not anger, not grief. Something colder, quieter, stronger. She straightened her posture, lifted her chin, and in the calmest voice she had spoken in days, she said, I hope you remember this moment. Adam frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Claire walked toward the door, her steps silent but powerful. Brianna whispered to Adam, let her go. She's trying to guilt you. But Claire wasn't trying anything. She was becoming something they hadn't calculated. Someone who felt nothing anymore. Because sometimes emptiness wasn't weakness. Sometimes emptiness was the beginning of power. Claire opened the door without turning back, and Helen exhaled sharply. Because for the first time, she saw something in Claire's eyes that terrified her. No tears, no fear, no emotional attachment left. Foreshadowing for Scene 6. As Claire walked into the sunlight, one thought settled like steel in her mind. If they wanted to tear her life apart, they should have checked what she was capable of when she finally stopped caring. The metal door slammed shut behind Claire with a violent echo. Not gentle, not careful, violent. The force surprised even her. Her hands were trembling, not from fear, but from something colder, something sharper. Something that had finally awakened after years of holding everything together for people who wanted her destroyed. The storage unit was cold, dimly lit by a single flickering bulb. Dust floated through the air like forgotten memories. This wasn't just a random space. This was Claire's hidden sanctuary, the place her father told her to build years ago. Always keep a place where the truth can live, he had said. People will lie, but numbers never will. She took a breath, letting the silence wrap around her. In this room, she wasn't Adam's wife. She wasn't Helen's target. She wasn't Brianna's obstacle. Here, she was Michael Bennett's daughter, and that meant she was no one's victim. Claire opened the large metal trunk at the back of the room. Inside were neatly labeled folders, envelopes, notebooks, and a small black device her father had given her on her 18th birthday, a voice recorder. "Always get proof," he said. "Not everyone deserves the truth, but everyone deserves consequences." She held the device in her hand, its weight familiar, grounding. Her reflection flickered on its surface, the reflection of a woman who had been brought to her knees but was now rising. Claire sat at the metal table and opened the first binder, financial logs. Her handwriting covered every page, documenting each bill she had managed, each debt she paid, each time she saved Adam or Helen from another disaster Adam never even knew existed. She could almost hear her father's voice. "Money tells stories people try to hide." She turned another page. Contracts, receipts, bank transfers, every dollar she had used to save Helen, including the $1 million debt. But then something caught her eye. Her throat tightened. A folder inside the drawer she had never opened before, labeled simply H&B. Claire felt a chill. She opened it slowly. Inside were printed messages, screenshots Helen had accidentally backed up to the family shared drive months earlier. Messages between her and Brianna. The first line felt like a punch. "Helen, keep reminding him he deserves better." Brianna, "Don't worry, I'll push him." Helen, "She's too controlling. He needs someone softer, someone like you." Brianna, "We'll push the breakup when the time is right." Claire's breath hitched. This wasn't a sudden betrayal. This wasn't emotional confusion. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a long-term plan, a planned destruction. Helen and Brianna had been conditioning Adam for months. Every insult he threw at Claire, every sharp word, every suspicion, none of it came from him. He had been guided, manipulated, used. Claire swallowed hard, anger burning a clean line through her chest. Not explosive anger, not uncontrolled, but precise anger, the kind that made a person dangerous. She gathered the printed pages into a neat stack. Evidence. Every piece would serve a purpose later. As she packed the documents into her briefcase, a white envelope slid out from the bottom of the storage trunk. Her name wasn't on it. It was addressed to Helen. Confused, Claire opened it. Inside was a financial document, Helen's loan contract. Only, it wasn't the same one Claire signed. Her breath froze. The signature at the bottom, the one marked Helen Hayes, was not Helen's handwriting. It was a forgery, but not just any forgery. The handwriting was familiar. Claire had seen it 1,000 times, in grocery lists, notes on the fridge, birthday cards. It was Adam's handwriting. Her fingers tightened around the paper as the truth slammed into her like a wave. Adam hadn't been a confused husband caught between loyalties. He had known about the loan. He had signed the forged papers. He had been involved from the beginning. Claire's heartbeat thundered in her ears. Everyone had betrayed her. Not just Helen, not just Brianna, but Adam himself. Claire closed the folder, her eyes cold, calm, and unrecognizable. She whispered into the empty room, "Now I know everything." In the faint hum of the storage lights, one quiet certainty began forming. If the truth was her weapon, then tomorrow she would start sharpening it. Claire's hand shook so violently she nearly dropped the phone. Not from fear, not from heartbreak, but from a rage so deep it made her bones vibrate. She stared at the cross-reference spreadsheet open on her laptop. Timestamps from her ledger matched with Adam's phone logs, matched with Helen's messages. She had spent hours aligning them, line by line, month by month, year by year. And now the truth hit her like a bomb. Brianna was not a recent mistress. She was the beginning of the betrayal. Claire's breath left her chest in a single harsh exhale. This wasn't a new affair. This wasn't a weak moment. This wasn't an accident. This was a long-term sabotage, orchestrated by Helen and carried out by Brianna. Claire leaned back in her seat, closing her eyes as memory after memory replayed. Moments she once ignored. now sharpened by truth. Claire remembers walking into the living room, newly married, still learning how to be a wife, still hopeful. Adam laughed at his phone, not at her. "Who are you texting?" she asked playfully. "Just an old friend," he said. "Brianna." Claire remembered the name but not the weight. Later that summer, Helen hosted a small family BBQ. Brianna showed up, uninvited, but Helen hugged her tighter than she hugged Claire. "Oh, sweetheart," Helen said to Brianna. "Adam missed you." Everyone treated Brianna like she was the real partner. Claire laughed it off back then. Now she saw the setup. Claire remembered sitting on the bathroom floor, pregnancy test in hand, tears of disappointment in her eyes when it came back negative. She walked into the bedroom quietly and found Adam deleting messages. She saw one line before it vanished. "Brianna, don't get her pregnant. That'll trap you." Claire had swallowed her confusion, told herself she misread it, told herself Adam loved her. Now she felt the sting in full, the cruelest flashback of all. Claire remembered Helen standing in her kitchen, begging for help, begging her to keep the $1 million debt quiet. But now she found messages dated weeks before that day. Helen, "I'll tell her soon. She'll pay it. She always does." Brianna, "Good. Get her tired. Easier to push her out when she's weak." Helen, "Once the debt is gone, Adam will finally choose you." Claire stared at those lines for minutes. They planned everything, every tear she cried, every sacrifice she made, every humiliation she endured. None of it was random. Claire parked her car outside a quiet lounge at nightfall, the neon sign flickering above her. She had followed Adam here, not because she wanted to catch him, but because she already knew what she would find. She tightened her grip on her phone. The door to the lounge opened. Adam and Brianna walked in, holding hands like a couple who had been practicing for years. Brianna rested her head on his shoulder, laughing softly. Claire recorded every detail, every step. Inside, she slipped into a dim corner booth, phone hidden in her jacket pocket. The recording app glowed red. Adam and Brianna sat at the bar, carefree, confident, loud. Claire lifted the phone slightly. "Brianna, once she signs the divorce papers, your mom said we'll finally be together. She even promised us the house." Claire's heart thudded. "Adam, she just needs to go. She never fit with us anyway." Brianna laughed sharply. Then came the line that cracked something inside Claire so cleanly it felt holy. "Brianna, after everything she did for your mom, some people are born stupid." Claire didn't flinch, didn't cry, didn't move. She lifted the phone closer. Her voice came out soft, steady, lethal. "Thank you," she whispered into the recorder. "I needed all of this." Adam and Brianna didn't hear her, but the world would, and she was no longer afraid of what came next. Claire stepped outside into the night air, the recording secure in her hand. A single thought settled over her like steel. Tomorrow, someone else would hear this too. The person she planned to visit next wore a suit, held a license, and never lost in court. The courtroom doors blasted open as Claire walked in, not slowly, not timidly, but with a force that turned heads instantly. She wore a simple black suit, hair pulled back, face calm, but her eyes carried fire. A quiet, controlled fire that came from someone who had been pushed past every limit and survived. Behind her, her attorney, Samuel Price, a sharp, respected divorce lawyer known for never losing a case, followed with a thick binder in hand. His presence was steady, confident, the calm opposite of the storm Claire carried inside her. Across the room sat Adam, Helen, and Brianna. Adam looked smug at first, leaning back like he expected victory. Helen sat upright, lips tight, still clinging to her pride. Brianna flicked her hair, pretending not to care. But when Claire's eyes met theirs, something shifted. For the first time, they looked unsure. Claire took her seat quietly. Samuel placed the binder before him and whispered, "You did everything right. Let the truth talk now." The judge entered, tapping her gavel sharply. "Case, Hayes versus Hayes," she announced. "We will begin with petitioner Claire Hayes." Adam frowned. "Petitioner?" he muttered. "What?" He turned to his attorney. "Did she file before me?" Before the attorney could answer, the judge spoke again. "Mrs. Hayes filed for divorce 3 days ago." Adam's face drained, so did Helen's. Claire didn't even look their way. As Samuel stood, Claire inhaled deeply. She had spent years thinking she was the weak one, the forgiving one, the patient one. But now, sitting in the courtroom she never thought she'd enter, she felt her father's strength in her spine. Always carry proof, he told her. And when the world tries to break you, let the truth cut back. Today the truth was sharp. Samuel opened the binder. Your Honor, we present evidence of long-term manipulation, financial deception, conspiracy, and infidelity. Helen gasped. Brianna stiffened. Adam swallowed hard. The judge nodded. Proceed. On the screen, Samuel displayed Claire's bank transfer, the contract she signed, the lending firm letter. Judge's eyes widened. Mrs. Hayes, you paid your mother-in-law's $1 million debt? Claire nodded. Yes. All eyes turned to Helen. Her face turned pale. Samuel pressed play. Brianna's voice filled the courtroom. Once she signs the papers, your mom said we'll finally be together. After everything she did for your mom? Some people are born stupid. There were gasps. Brianna covered her mouth, eyes wide with panic. Adam tried to stand. Your Honor, this is taken out of Sit down, the judge snapped. Helen looked sick. Screenshots appeared on the projector. Helen, keep reminding him he deserves better. Brianna, we'll push the breakup when the time is right. Helen, she's too controlling. Make him see it. The judge stared at Helen. Did you send these? Helen's voice cracked. Her hands trembled. Samuel placed the forged loan paper on the judge's desk. This signature, he said calmly, does not match Helen Hayes' handwriting, but it does match Adam Hayes. Adam's chair scraped loudly as he stood. That's a lie, I didn't. But Samuel held up another document. A birthday card Adam wrote last year. Same loops, same strokes. Helen's mouth fell open. You forged my signature? She whispered at Adam. Broken, stunned. Adam panicked. Mom, I thought you said... Helen suddenly collapsed back into her chair, hands shaking violently. Samuel projected timestamps showing Adam's late-night calls with Brianna, expenses for hotel rooms, deleted messages recovered from backups, photos of the two entering the lounge together. The judge turned to Adam sharply. You engaged in an affair during the marriage? Adam sputtered. It wasn't serious. Brianna grabbed his arm. Don't say that. Their fight began right there. Loud, messy, humiliating. Samuel dropped the final bomb. Your Honor, we also present evidence that Helen transferred weekly payments to Brianna's account for the last 8 months. The judge's jaw tightened. Helen burst into tears. They told me. They said. Brianna said Adam needed someone who supported him. Adam gaped at Brianna. You took money? Brianna folded her arms. You think I did this for free? Chaos erupted at their table, but Claire stayed still, steady, silent. The judge banged her gavel repeatedly. Enough! Silence fell. The judge adjusted her glasses, voice firm, eyes locked on Adam, Helen, and Brianna. Given the overwhelming evidence, everyone in the courtroom leaned forward. As the judge prepared her ruling, Claire felt a quiet certainty settle in her chest. Justice wouldn't just punish them, it would expose them. Scene 9 would show exactly how. The courtroom exploded into noise the second the judge spoke her first words. Given the overwhelming evidence, the room went silent again so fast it felt like the air had been sucked out. Adam's hands began to shake. Helen froze like a statue. Brianna clutched her purse tighter, as if ready to bolt. The judge continued. This court rules in favor of the petitioner, Mrs. Claire Hayes. Helen whimpered. Adam's shoulders collapsed. Brianna's jaw dropped. Claire sat completely still, hands clasped, expression calm. Yet the intensity around her felt like a thunderstorm swirling in slow motion. Mrs. Hayes is awarded the majority of the marital assets, the judge declared. This includes the home, the vehicles, and financial accounts. Adam shot to his feet. Your Honor, please, she's manipulating everything. The judge raised a hand sharply. You forged your mother's signature on a $1 million financial contract, Mr. Hayes. That alone invalidates your credibility. Gasps echoed. Helen covered her face with her hands, shaking uncontrollably. The judge wasn't done. Claire lowered her eyes. She wasn't proud. She wasn't celebrating. She was remembering years of trying to hold a family together that was waiting to tear her apart. Her father's voice whispered in her mind, "Truth doesn't need to shout. It stands." Claire felt the truth today, standing taller than she ever had. "Mr. Hayes," the judge said firmly, "you are legally mandated to repay Mrs. Hayes the full $1 million she paid to cover your mother's debt." Adam's knees buckled. $1 million. I can't. "That is your responsibility," the judge replied coldly. "Not hers." Brianna leaned away from him, disgusted. The judge lifted another document. "Regarding Mrs. Helen Hayes, this court recognizes the forged signature on a legally binding financial document." Helen's sobbing intensified. "Therefore, Mrs. Hayes, you are charged with fraud, falsifying financial records, and conspiracy." Helen's head snapped up. "What? No. Adam told me. He said it would protect us." Two officers stepped forward. Helen reached for Adam with trembling fingers, but he pulled back instinctively, panicked. "Mom, stop. Don't pull me into this." Her cry echoed painfully as the officers placed her in handcuffs. Outside the courthouse, the media waited like hungry wolves. Reporters shouted, "Claire, were you aware of your husband's affair? Adam, did you forge your mother's signature? Brianna, did you help break this marriage?" The story spread online within minutes. Clips of the hearing, screenshots of messages, videos of Helen crying. The recording of Brianna calling Claire born stupid. Adam's workplace immediately released a public statement. Adam Hayes is terminated effective immediately due to misconduct and ethical violations. His phone buzzed nonstop. Friends unfriended him. Co-workers blocked him. Community pages roasted him. People whispered as he passed, "That's him. Shameful. He ruined his own family." As parking lot chaos grew, Brianna turned on him. "I did not sign up for this," she snapped. Adam grabbed her arm. "Bree, please, just stay until things calm down." She yanked away. "You're broke. You're jobless. Your mom's going to jail. You're being forced to repay $1 million. Why would I stay?" He stared at her, stunned, desperate. "Because you said you loved me." She let out a sharp laugh. "I said what I had to so your mom would stop crying into my phone." Then she walked away. Not once did she look back. From the police car window, Helen cried out Adam's name. "Don't let them take me! Adam! Adam!" But Adam stood frozen. He didn't move. He didn't run. He didn't help. All his alliances had crumbled in one day. Claire walked past the reporters without a single word. She didn't gloat. She didn't smirk. She didn't even glance at the chaos behind her. Silence itself became her power. Her father's phrase played again in her mind. "Dignity is louder than revenge." Later that night, Claire returned to the home the court awarded her. The porch light was off. The street was quiet. But as she reached the door, a shadow moved. Adam stood there, eyes red, face wet, hair a mess. He looked completely destroyed. "Claire," he whispered, voice shaking, "please, I don't have anyone left." Claire froze. Her keys hung in her fingers. For a moment, silence pressed between them like a wall ready to crack. Then Adam took a slow step toward her. "Let me in, please." Behind Adam's shaking voice, behind his broken apology, Claire sensed something darker forming. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the real confrontation. Adam slammed his hand against the doorframe, desperate, breath shaking. "Claire, please," he cried, voice cracking with panic. "You can't leave me like this. I lost everything. My mom, my job, Brianna. Everyone abandoned me. You're the only one I have left." The intensity hit Claire instantly. He looked nothing like the man she once loved. His eyes wild with regret, his clothes wrinkled, his stance unstable. He wasn't here to make things right. He was here because he had nowhere else to fall. Claire stood firm, her back straight, her keys still in her hand. For a moment she felt a familiar ache in her chest. This was the same man she woke up next to for years. The same man she cooked for. The same man she once believed she would build a family with. But then she remembered the recordings, the messages, the lies, the mockery, the betrayal that started from the beginning of their marriage and never stopped. She exhaled slowly. Adam, she said softly, look at yourself. He lifted his head, eyes red and desperate. You and your mother tried to erase me, Claire continued. Her voice was calm, steady in a way that showed she had already healed past the point of return. I only erased your lies. Adam's mouth fell open. He stepped forward again. I can change, Claire. I swear. Just give me another chance. She shook her head gently. You didn't just betray me, she said. You let other people shape your voice. Your mother, Brianna, anyone but you. You had every chance to stand beside me. You chose to stand behind them. He froze, breathing hard. Claire reached for the door. And now, she whispered, you face life the same way you lived it, with someone else cleaning your mess, or no one at all. Before he could respond, she closed the door. Firm, final. The soft click echoed louder than any shout. Inside her now peaceful home, Claire didn't collapse. She didn't shake. She didn't cry. Instead, she walked straight to the small table near the hallway, where her father's old ledger sat. The same ledger that once held evidence, numbers, and plans. The same ledger that saved her life. She ran her fingers over its cover one last time. Then she placed it inside a box, gently closed the lid, and whispered, It's over. The next morning, sunlight spilled across her new office building, a modern workspace she purchased with her portion of the settlement. She walked confidently through the glass doors, shoulders relaxed, face bright. Her assistant, a young woman named Elise, greeted her. Good morning, Mrs. Hayes, Elise said warmly. Ready for your first official day? Claire smiled, soft, peaceful, free. More than ready. She walked toward her new desk, sunlight warming her face. The world felt open again, clean, stable. Hers. In the quiet of her new office, Claire reflected as if speaking to her father through memory. I paid my way into that family, she whispered. I paid my way out. And now the only debts left are theirs. She closed the box containing the ledger forever.